Hey everybody, Chris Remmes from Boston here and Coldwell Banker coming to you with the latest version of my video blog. Today I wanted to talk to you about some quick tips on making an offer. You know, I was with some clients this weekend and they were thinking about making an offer on a house, you know, and their question was, Chris, where do we start? Where's the best place to start with making an offer? And I said to them, well, you guys should remember, you know, 4 months ago when we first met, when we started this whole process, we sat down and we went through the whole offer process. So I think it's very important for you as a buyer, when you're deciding on who your buyer's agent is, you want to sit down and go through the process of buying a home and the process of making an offer long before you ever get there. So by the time that you're actually making an offer, it's not the first time you're seeing the forms, it's not the first time you're being asked some of the questions, and it's not totally unfamiliar to you, because making an offer is a big deal, it's very stressful, and it's when this whole home buying process really starts to get real for a lot of people. So like I said, you know, where do you start? And a lot of people say, Chris, where do we start with the offer? How low? A lot of people say, how low can we go? You know, do we go in at asking, or how low do we go? And I always say, let's go over the comps, and then you need to ask yourselves as the buyer, where do I want to finish? So where you want to finish is really probably the first thing on your price that you want to figure out. Not where you start, but where you want to finish. Because if you're in a multiple bid situation, or it gets competitive, or even if you're not in a multiple bid situation when you start, doesn't mean that it won't become a multiple bid situation over time, because it can take 2 or 3 days sometimes to submit an offer and get it submitted. So I think the first thing to do is to think about, go over the comps and think about where you want to finish with your price, not where you want to start. So after you work out the price, I think that's the first step for most people, very naturally. The second thing you want to consider are the terms and conditions of the offer, because the price is a big part of the offer, but it's only one part of the offer. We want to figure out the timing. We need to talk about the contingencies. And then something else we want to talk about is you're going to want to have your agent reach out to the seller's agent, the listing agent who's working for the seller, and you want to find out what's important to the seller. Do they have a place under agreement already? Do they need to close quickly? Do they need a little more time? You know, what's their ideal closing date? You want to find out what's important to the seller before you start making your offer, and before you sit down and start making all your terms and conditions. It's the whole measure twice, cut once theory. So once you're in an offer, and let's just assume that we're in a multiple offer situation, because in Boston, you know, we're still seeing a lot of multiple bid situations these days. We might not be seeing 6, 7, 8 offers, but we're seeing 2, 3, 4 offers, and it can be very stressful. So I think something you're going to want to talk to your agent about too, if you're in that type of a situation, is an escalation clause. A lot of people, particularly a lot of agents, don't even know what an escalation clause. But basically, an escalation clause says, listen, I will offer X amount, and if there are other offers, and if there's a higher offer, I will bid $2,500 or another amount above the highest offer up to a certain amount. And it gets a lot of agents nervous, and it can get a lot of sellers nervous if their agents don't understand them, because if you don't do it right, yeah, maybe it could be messy. But if you have a seasoned, experienced agent as a buyer, it's a good way to go, because you'll get to see what the higher offer is, and then you'll get to a second chance at rewriting your offer. So I would not be afraid of an escalation clause. I think what you need to do is really have a very experienced agent with you and guiding you through this process. And an escalation clause for a buyer can be a great tool to make sure that you're not paying, that you're not overpaying for a property, or that you're not bidding against yourself. So the next thing we got to talk about are some of the contingencies. You know, the mortgage contingency. A lot of people are waiving the mortgages these days, their mortgage contingencies these days. And what does that mean to you as the buyer? If you waive your mortgage contingency, the risk there is that, you know, something will happen along the way and that you won't get your mortgage. The mortgage companies these days are doing a really thorough job doing background checks on you before they give you your pre-approval. So the big risk that I see is that the appraisal doesn't come in. If you're in a multiple offer situation, your appraisal usually will come in. But if you go so high that it doesn't come in, you may be required to make up the difference, or ask the seller to lower the price, which is not a very high likelihood. So you need to understand that as well. You know, with home inspections, I never suggest that a buyer waive a home inspection. I think what we can do is just say that we're going to do it for informational purposes only. We're going to do it for safety and structural issues. But doing a home inspection for a buyer is just cheap insurance, and it's going to give you comfort going in that you know what you're getting into. So the other thing I wanted to talk about very quickly before we wrap up here is renting back. A lot of times sellers are also buyers. So they're on the other end, they're buying a house and they're kind of in the same situation. So sometimes it's advantageous for a seller to actually close before they buy their other house and then they rent back from the buyer. It's also another thing I wouldn't be afraid of. What I think is very important that you as a buyer need to educate yourself well before you're in the position of putting down an offer, and when you start the home buying process, you need to sit down, you need to select an agent, and you need an agent who's experienced and educated, and you need an agent who can help educate you so that you can make these decisions intelligently. Thank you for joining me for today's video. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking about real estate, love talking about making offers, and if you have any other questions or need any other help, feel free to leave some comments below or feel free to reach out to me at the number below. I'd be happy to walk you through the process. Have a great day. Chris Remmes from Coldwell Banker.